All right, so Ray, we just had GM that reported their earnings. We have an income decline, and this is before tariffs even have any kind of effect. But here's the big deal: is that guidance. We don't know what's going on. We're going to throw that away, and I assume that this is going to be the first of all the manufacturers that are just going to throw their guidance right into the trash. We don't know what's going on. We got tariffs one day, we got back off of tariffs another day. We've got part import tariffs, and now we don't have part import tariffs. We got China stuff, everything that's going on. These companies can't predict the future. They're not able to lay out their guidance. We have a Stellantis that is later this week, I believe, and then Ford that's next week, if I'm not mistaken. But GM quarter, what are you feeling from this quarter right here, and about guidance and them just throwing it away?
Well, it seems to me that their net income was down. And I think the net income was down primarily because they didn't produce as many of the high profit margin, high priced pickups and SUVs. They imported more of entry level vehicles, and obviously, when you do that, that cuts back on your profit margins. So that to me wasn't that hard to comprehend. What is hard for all these manufacturers and realistically all businesses, especially publicly traded ones, where you try and project out based on how things have been and how you think things are going to go, what your earnings should be for a year. And all of that is typically based on, I don't know, not a lot of change. One of the things businesses count on is they want to have a firm understanding as to what the playing field is going to be. And when they have that understanding and that playing field doesn't change every other week, they can kind of project based on history where they think they'll end up. When you have constant change, that becomes impossible, or at least it appears to become impossible for these large manufacturers to try and predict where they're going to be. I mean, they don't know from one day to the next, it appears to me.
And it's getting really difficult for these dealers too. I actually wanted to pull up, we talked about high margin earlier. I wanted to pull up one of the 2025 Silverados 1500. This is going to be one of the high margin products.
Yes.
MSRP on this one is $73,000. I want to show you this. This is invoice price on it. This is the spread between what dealer is getting allocated this product for. Obviously, there's a lot of other money that goes back into that, and then versus the MSRP.
Yes.
And actually, CarEdge hooked us up with a link. If you want to see the invoice price of any vehicle, we got a link down below. It's free. You can try it out. But I want to pull up this dealership in particular because let's see here. We got day supply of this thing is 95 days supply on a higher. And typically we want to see 50, 60 days supply on a lot of these products. But I wanted to come down to the actual pricing. I think I already passed it. Where'd it go? There we go. This is the reason why I want to pull this up, because this is a dealership that I actually know. It's local to me. And I think they do a really good job because they stay with the market. And you can see as the time has gone on and they've kept the car longer, they've actually dropped it down. And right now they've got it all the way down to $63,000. And I think we're going to see this a lot where we have the threat. And I think me and you disagree a little bit with this, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But I think with a lot of these dealerships, we have the threat of tariffs. We have the threat of prices going up and stuff. But I believe that even as the economy gets weaker because of the threat of tariffs becomes a reality, that a lot of these dealerships are going to get hit with a brick wall, even if they try to increase a lot of these prices. And they're going to have to do exactly what I'm seeing this car dealership do right now. And in the face of all of this, they're actually lowering their prices quite a bit.
Well, here's what you have to consider. Right now, at least according to Cox Automotive, the average day supply of vehicles nationally, average for all brands, was a 60-day supply. Obviously Toyota, Lexus are way down below at like 30, 32. And then there's other brands that are well into the 140s, 150-day supply. But if the average is 60 days, and that truck, the day supply of those type of trucks in that area was 95 days. That's 35 days more supply than what the average is at the moment. So that would indicate to me that even though it's a truck and pickup trucks are popular, that one's fallen behind a little bit as far as how quickly sales are happening. And so if I was a dealer and I know that the rest of my average is a 60-day supply and I have trucks that are 95 days and going up, yeah, I'm going to do whatever I can at that point to figure out what price point it needs to be at to encourage somebody to buy it. And will some of that be tariff based? I don't know. I think it's more market based than tariff based, but I also believe that we have seen an increase in sales in March and April due to people trying to get ahead of whatever the potential price increases will be on vehicles with the ongoing tariffs.
Yeah, and I've got a question for you because I've been talking about this a lot. A lot of the videos that we put out, I recognize that there's been a seasonally strong period. And there also, I feel like it's been a lot of pull forward in demand from FOMO, people wanting to get ahead of these tariffs. If they're thinking about buying a vehicle in the next 6 months, well, they bought it right now so they could get ahead of any potential price hikes, even if there's not going to be any. I mean, if they're on the fence, they're buying right now. We know that salesmen are using this tactic and it's working. Do you feel like, though, all this pull forward in demand, is there going to be just a shut off of buyers because everyone who was going to buy in the next 6 months, they just bought a vehicle, and now those buyers that were going to be there don't materialize because they've already purchased?
Are you asking me, do I think that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's face it, costs have gone up and wages have not kept up with inflation. So people's dollars just don't go as far as they used to. And those who can buy are buying now because they're betting that prices are going to go up. And we know from a Car Edge survey that we did, it was if there's I think a 5% increase in prices, the percentage, 2/3 of the population said, well, we can't participate. And even if there weren't any price increases, 40-some% of the population said, we're out now. It doesn't matter what goes on with prices. So I think at a certain point, it all kind of falls off a cliff. Those who could buy had bought, and the future buyers just won't be there. And I've seen numbers where they're expecting that if tariffs really impact the industry the way people think it will, there'll be 2 million new cars that won't get sold this year that would have gotten sold if there hadn't been tariffs.
And so here's my worry. So net income's going down because of softness in the economy is already hitting these manufacturers. Now, we haven't seen numbers out of Stellantis. We haven't seen numbers out of Ford yet. I would assume, because usually these manufacturers follow each other, if I'm looking just at these American manufacturers, my assumption would be their incomes would also be down. But we're seeing this softness already from their income without the tariff slowdown. And now I know next quarter we're going to see this pull forward in demand that we're seeing right now. That's going to be represented on next quarter.
Yes.
But then the following quarter, that's what I'm very concerned about for all these auto manufacturers, because you could have investors come in and say, okay, we had a strong last quarter. We had a lot of people buying cars. And now we hit Q3 and like, uh-oh, what happened?
And I think that's what we're going to encounter. And I think the smart people out there the smart pundits realize that's what the outcome could be. Um, it there's only so many dollars that an American consumer can spend, um, and I think for a lot of people we have reached their limits, and so yeah, I think you're going to see new car sales fall off a cliff. I don't think anybody should be surprised when that happens, but there will be people in the market that are going to go, "Oh, well, didn't see that coming," um, and I don't know how they could have missed it. But if for instance, the Audi Q5 built in Mexico for worldwide distribution, and it is a new model that's coming out. So there is a 14.5% price increase that we're going to see on the Audi Q5 in the United States. Part of that reason that it's 14.5% is it's a new model. And when you have new redesigned models, typically prices go up. The other reason that it's a 14.5% price increase is it's built in Mexico, and it will be subject to a 25% tariff when it comes into the United States. So my guess is that if there hadn't been any tariffs, the price increase on that vehicle might have been 5%, maybe 7.5%. But because of the impending tariffs on vehicles built in Mexico, we're going to see a 14.5% increase in the price of that vehicle. So as that starts to sink in, that's going to drive people away. I mean, you can't. The average price increase on the Q5 for the new model year is over $6,000. Well, even for well-heeled customers, I don't know, $6,000 could be enough to get them to say, I think I need to look at something less expensive, or I think I'm out of the market altogether.
And let's speak to this. Igor's pulling up something. I think it's interesting. Says same thing people said during COVID, Ray, and yet we've seen completely the opposite. People paid well over MSRP, and I feel like this is spoken like a true car dealer right here, right? Because they're saying prices go up, they'll just pay it, whatever. But I feel like a lot of these car dealers are going to be hit in the face. You got to remember, Igor, during COVID, we had money pumping everywhere. We had interest rates,
yes,
right at zero. And that's the complete opposite of what we're experiencing right now. So you have to change when the circumstances change. And I feel like if a lot of these car dealers, maybe like Igor, that get stuck up like, okay, people just pay it. They have the money to pay it. Maybe on your luxury brands, but that's not the overall, that's not the biggest piece of pie, right? We got to look at the mid-range buyer, the middle class. That's where all your money's going to come in an economic situation like this. And that's where your American brands are fed. That's where everyone except for a lot of these upper tier luxury brands are going to be fed. But even on the luxury side, people who have lots of money, they pay attention to markets. And if they get afraid of the market, they're also not going to spend money. So I feel like this is going to be a completely different situation than what we saw 4 years ago.
I think what makes it different than 4 years ago is the government's not sending everybody a $1,500 check every 3 or 4 months, whatever it was. That's number one. Number two, there's always going to be a percentage of people who will stay in the market regardless of what the prices are. But that segment of people represents a smaller group than the vast majority who will find themselves out of the market. So that I don't think you'll have as many people who are willing to pay market adjustments, add-ons, whatever it is. You probably have a large majority of people who would say, I wish I could, but I can't. And because there isn't any stimulus money, And because interest rates, the average new car interest rate today is close to 7%. The average used car rate's 12.5% or somewhere around there. Those rates are significantly higher than what we saw during COVID. So you have an increase in price, an increase in interest rates, and an increase in average monthly payment that is forcing more people out of the market than drawing more people into the market, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we can look at a vehicle like, let's look at the lower range. So
Okay.
you're saying from GM's standpoint, they're trying to focus a little bit more on the lower
Yes.
range, and this is where a lot of their net income has the falls come from. But I feel like that's actually a good decision because you got to make something up in volume. This is how they make it up in volume. They have a vehicle that's $32,000, their MSRP invoice right here. This is what the dealer is going to be allocated this vehicle for. Again, if you want to see invoice pricing, check the link down below. CarEdge hooked us up something for you guys so you can do it for free. But anyway, you can see the difference in margin, both for what you can assume it's coming from GM and also for the dealer. The dealer is going to make a lot less money on the front end. Now, traditionally, you're going to see that dealers don't make a lot of money on the front end of new vehicles. Anyway, if anything, it used to be in the volume game, they didn't make anything on the front end of vehicles. They get paid from the manufacturer. They get paid holdback. They've got, you know what, Ray, actually, you're better. Let's go through some of the ways that dealerships actually make money, because what most people don't understand when they're looking at these MSRPs, they're looking at the invoices. How can they be so thin and these dealerships still have these massive, massive buildings? It's because they're not making money off of you, off of that selling the actual vehicle.
There's what's known as in the industry as under the line money. Now, what does that mean? Well, we saw in that example that invoice was like $30,800 and some dollars for a car that had an MSRP of $31,975. So there was like $1,100 margin built into the car. Well, under the line, under the invoice amount is where dealers make extra money. There could be 1.5 to 2.5% that's allocated for holdback. There could be 1% that's allocated for floor plan assistance. Well, if the car doesn't sit there long enough to incur any floor plan interest, that's just additional profit for the dealer. There could be 1% or a set amount of dollars for advertising assistance to help market the car. And then there can be additional incentives from General Motors or Chevrolet that says, if you sell X number of these this month, we'll pay you an extra $500 per car that you sold, or an extra $1,000 per car. So dealers in many cases are incentivized to sell the car cheap to make up the money under the line and through the manufacturer. And then obviously the other way they make the money is through their finance and insurance department when they do the final paperwork for the deal. So that the average back end today is probably around $2,000. Back end being what the finance and insurance department's making between the markup on the loan and the products that they sell you back there, whether it be an extended warranty or a maintenance program or a dent and dig program or a tire and wheel program. So they can afford to sell a vehicle and make it look like they're making nothing. And then once you add in $2,000 worth of finance and insurance income and $700 in holdback and $300 in advertising assistance and $600 in floor plan assistance, all of a sudden they're at $4,000. So that's how they do it. And then we haven't even touched on parts and service, which in most stores are the big producer of profits.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to see how dealerships actually make money, pay for their buildings, pay for their staff. Dock fees can go all over the place. Some states they're regulated, some states they're not.
Yes.
But I mean, you can even have a situation of a vehicle that's not selling at all, and then you get to where MSRP and invoice are actually very close, if not the same amount of money, and then the dealership still is selling it for under that amount that they're invoicing. But I can almost guarantee that this dealership right here, even with selling it well under their invoice, they're still going to be able to make money because GM is going to float a lot of that difference to actually get some of these moved. And I mean, look at this. Look at this. It's a 2024 GMC Hummer EV, $154,000. If we know anything about big EV trucks, Ford Lightning, Cybertruck's having a hard time right now. This is exactly what the American public wants, right? Right, Ray?
No, it's not. And you can see it there. But yet General Motors will cut them back a big check for one of those vehicles that gets sold that doesn't have any margin built in it. And I mean, that's how it works. When I was running our Audi store, it was like my factory rep said, we don't expect you to make money off the customer when you sell them a new car. You hit your volume objectives and we will make you profitable, not the customer. Okay, that seems sort of counterintuitive. I got a great idea. Why don't you just lower the damn prices on all the vehicles, okay, and make us have to make a profit, okay? And how many more of those vehicles would you sell if the prices were lower? But I only manage dealerships. I didn't run manufacturers, so.
I got an interesting question for you. So we see that there are a lot of brands that are struggling right now, even before potential price hikes come in. Do you think that, but we also see there's a bunch of brands that are like knocking the cover off the ball. Toyota, Lexus, they're selling the cars before. In a lot of cases, the cars even hit the floor right now because of this pull forward demand. They already were selling cars, right? Do you think there's going to become more of a divergence if we get price hikes where the brands that aren't doing well, they're even going to do worse, but the brands that are doing well, maybe those dealerships will actually even do better because then they're able to charge more for whatever reason? I mean, we used to see a market adjustment. Maybe they call it a tariff adjustment in this case, but I think, do you think there's going to be a bigger spread between the different brands?
I think the brands that do well will continue to do well, and the brands that struggle will always struggle. And I think their struggles will be exacerbated because of potential price increases when you consider that, for instance, with Stellantis, just over the course of time, they raise their prices enough that they cut their very own customers out of the market. And those were voluntary price increases from Stellantis, not price increases that will happen due to tariffs. So some brands got greedier than others, and now they're struggling, and they will continue to struggle because they stopped producing vehicles at price points that appealed to their customers, and they just abandoned those people in the first place. And then there's other brands like Toyota, Lexus, Honda, where they will always have a below normal day supply, thus creating this sense for a buyer of, well, I better get in there and buy something soon before they're all gone. And that's how those manufacturers are making all the money in the world at the moment.
So I've got a question for you. Put yourself, I know it's been a little while since you've been actually running a dealership, but put yourself back into those shoes. And what are you doing right now as far as negotiations go? Are you trying to tighten up a little bit more because of the potential of some production cuts or consumers that are less willing to buy cars, so you have to make more per vehicle? Or are you just trying to sell anything you can right now, and maybe even the tariffs are going to help push that forward? What are you doing as a sales manager right now?
If it were me, I would be trying to make as many car deals as I possibly could. Okay. If I have customers that are in the market, even though, excuse me, my future prices might be higher and my replacement cost might be higher, I'm acting as if they're not. I just want to keep the momentum going with the hope that I have sold enough cars moving forward that if and when things slow down, and if I was running a dealership, I would expect things to slow down. I want to have sold enough cars and made enough money that if and when that eventuality happens, I have enough in the bank to cover us until it picks back up again. And I know that that's probably the opposite of what a lot of dealers are trying to do. Um, and I will just say that customers have memories like elephants, and they will remember the dealer that took advantage of them. And when it's time to replace that vehicle, probably never go back to that dealer. And customers will remember dealers who didn't try to take advantage of them and hopefully continue to shop there. So that's the way I would approach it, in that I want to build as much momentum and have as much momentum going forward as I can for when we do hit the wall, that we've made enough money and it's in the bank and we can survive whatever the downturn might be.
So I guess it hasn't been recently. It's a few months ago, but I've got a buddy who's a franchise dealer at a Nissan dealership. Went in there I was just there one day, and he had his sales staff out there, and they were doing their before the open sales meeting where they were walking around the car.
Yeah.
The sales manager that he had there was showing these new salesmen how to go through, sell the car, show all the features. Everybody's very serious. I went in there and made a joke. Nobody even looked up. I just they wanted me not there, so I left so they could have their serious time or whatever. But my question is to you. So when you're having those meetings, what is the conversation like right now? What are you telling your salespeople right now? Because obviously every customer that comes in there, they're watching the news. They're going to say something about tariffs. What is the response to the tariff conversation that you're telling your salespeople that wants to come from our dealership?
Well, I would tell them, hey, the stuff that's here doesn't have a tariff on it. You can take advantage of that. So it's like that old commercial, you can pay me now or you can pay me later. If you prefer to pay more later, we're good with that. I don't know how that makes good financial sense for you. But it will be cheaper for you to buy that car today than it will be if you want to buy the replacement vehicle that comes in 6 weeks from now. And if I was running a dealer, I mean, I would have my salespeople conversant in the fact that as a dealership, we are not charging over MSRP. We are not making adjustments in our pricing for tariffs that will be in the future. Our prices are based on what we paid for the vehicle when we got the vehicle, and that is how we will sell the car moving forward to you. As the replacement vehicles come in and those prices are higher, both for us and on the window sticker side of things, we'll deal with that then. But if you want to save some money today and not have to pay that future tariff, we're willing to work with you in order to make that happen. I would rather have a car sale today than hope to have a car sale tomorrow.
Yeah, I think a lot of these dealerships are missing the mark on that because we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, all tariffs could go to zero tomorrow. It's been so wishy-washy in this administration that we don't know if we're going to have 25% tariffs tomorrow, 0%, or 50%. Who knows? And it could change. Even if there's something set in stone today, it could change in a week. So I feel like as a dealership, you're just trying to grab any sale that you can right now.
Well, I would think you should. And it is like it is as if everything is set in shifting sands, or as the ocean tide rises and lowers, that tide can wash out what was written earlier today. You just don't know, and businesses prefer some sense of certainty. and these are uncertain times, and so it's difficult to know how to move forward. But the one thing you know how to do is how to deal with the present, and the present is, this is what I paid for this car. I'm not going to concern myself with what that future car might cost me, because I have no idea. But I know what I need to make on this car, and I know the opportunity, if I sell the car, that it'll give my finance department and my parts and service departments. And I don't want to rob either one of those departments of those opportunities.
Yeah, and let's just go right back to it. We're going to show you again. Here's MSRP on this Sierra. But if you want to see invoice price, not necessarily on this vehicle, but any vehicle you're looking at potentially purchasing, any information is just more information for you to have to be able to negotiate. Click the link down below. It's free. All you got to do is go to it and put in the vehicle, sign up for it, whatever. You can get the information that you want to get from there. Totally free. Just go check it out. And thank Car Edge for hooking us up with that link. So, well, thank you, Ray from Car Edge. So we're being able to share it with you guys, so you can see some invoice pricing for yourself. But for me, Ray, my wife, producers behind the scenes, everybody else in the chat, thank you for having a great. I was going to say thank you for having a great day. Ray,
I hope to have a great day. Thank you for wishing that I have a great day.
Yeah, words are hard.
I appreciate that.
All right, are we done? We're done.
We're done.
All right,
I'm pretty